Hello, everybody. Hello, everyone. We're pleased to be here tonight. Thank you all for attending our workshop, which is called The Key to Fostering Motivation and Engagement in Our Kids. It's to help our communication skills with our children and help them to feel seen and heard. This is part one, which will be followed by part two
Hello,
shortly on
everyone.
navigating.
Hello, everyone. I'm Samira King, and I'm always impressed at how many parents find the time at 7 o'clock in the evening to actually do this. So we do hope that you will leave here making it worthwhile for you. And Tina, I will let you get started.
Okay, thank you very much. All right. Again, welcome this evening, and I'll just tell you a little bit about what we're going to cover in this portion of the webinar. We're going to begin with recognizing some parenting challenges. We'll be discussing some tools for building and maintaining connection, as well as how to increase motivation. In part two of our webinar, which will happen on February 11th, we're going to again be covering parenting challenges. This time the focus will be on explicit skill building and how to build a skill in order to increase motivation and further engage your child in whatever goals they set out to achieve. Also, I just wanted to make note that this approach is neurodivergent friendly. I just have to move the picture here. So this approach can be supported by neurodivergent affirming practices, such as using concrete language and allowing extra processing time. So going right away to some common parenting challenges. We have here getting kids to cooperate, engage, and to take initiative is very difficult. Having kids help or come and cooperate in the things that we're asking them to do in little tasks, to be fully engaged and not passively engaged in a task, as well as taking the initiative on their own. So doing things without being asked to do them first. We also experience at time helping our kids regulate their emotions, especially frustration or disappointment. We all know that our kids can sometimes go from 0 to 10 with no in-between emotion. They can escalate very quickly, and helping them to come back down from extreme emotions can also be a big challenge. Motivating kids to do things that are not fun or easy is certainly a parenting challenge that we've all experienced, myself included. So kids often prefer to do high interest activities or things that are very easy to accomplish or get done and quick in time. And it's not always easy to get them to put forth some effort, especially if the task is undesirable. And of course, helping our kids to set out of their comfort zone. It's extremely challenging, I feel, especially with today's children. Everything comes quite easily. They have access to a lot of information. They have easily access to their friends, and getting them to step out of their comfort zone, whether it be socially or academically, or even just related to tasks within the home, demands that you ask them to do, can be very difficult and poses a big challenge for parents today.
Thank you, Tina. Can you go back to the other slide, though, before we begin with this slide? Thank
Sure.
you. Yeah, I just wanted to add about the last note here, helping kids step out of their comfort zone. This is really a big one. In fact, everything that we sort of mentioned in the other bullets really encompasses this notion that kids do need to be able to do things they don't want to do. They have to deal with frustration, with disappointment. So really, it's all under the same umbrella. And what I want you to keep in mind as we go on through this webinar is that we really need you to start being open-minded and okay with letting your kids experience discomfort and frustration, at least to some extent. This is very hard for us as parents, right? Intuitively, we don't like to see our kids suffer. We don't want to see them emotional, in distress, unhappy, and we tend to want to sort of make them feel better, right? But we do need to keep that in mind that this is a very important skill that they need to learn. Okay, next slide. So the title of our webinar is about um, engagement, motivation, feeling seen and heard. And the first thing we need to do when we're feeling seen and heard, or when we connect, is to be able to have that dialogue with our children, right? Connection is the basis to everything that we're going to be doing. So before we give you strategies on how to increase their motivation, how to maybe develop certain skills, the first thing we need as parents is to be able to connect well to our kids. If we're connected and we're engaging with our kids well, we're probably two-thirds of the way, at least two-thirds of the way. I find that once we have that buy-in, the other things can flow much more easily. So let's start with connection. So there's several things that we do when we want to connect. And the first thing is to be able to communicate validation and acceptance. So I'm going to go in general on these things, and then we're going to hone in on them a little bit more. Next bullet, Tina, thank you. We want to really listen to our kids. Really listening means using curiosity, being fully attentive. Really listening is not passing judgment or criticizing or minimizing. In fact, this communicating validation and really listening is a skill that really helps us connect with everyone. This is not just connecting with our kids, connecting with our spouses, with our friends, with our coworkers. These are skills that really go about in any social situation. Next bullet. Having better conversations, right? That requires to have ways of asking questions in a better way, having open-ended questions, exploring what your child is saying or what the person is saying. And it's really important to be able to know how to do that really well. It's having perspective, seeing the other perspective, it's showing interest, and it's using reflection. So we're going to talk about all those kind of things as we move along today. And yeah, I'd like to start with validation. Next slide, Tina.
Yes, I'm pressing and
It's not going.
it's not going. There we go. Is this the slide?
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
So what is validation? We hear that a lot. Validation, is really also a lot of things together. And when we think of validation, we really want to put it at the beginning of our interactions with our children. So this, again, it's true not for the way we interact only with children, but we're talking now with our children. So when if you think about the fact that we all really want to be in a situation where people listen to us, and your child is saying something to you and you validate how they feel, you're already getting into that mode in which they are beginning to listen to you. So I'm going to give a little bit of examples. So the first part of validation is acknowledging and accepting their feelings. And this can sound in different ways, but it's really saying to them that you understand how they feel, right? I know this is hard for you. I know that you're feeling upset about what happened. I know you're worried about this. And we're not passing judgment. You're not minimizing it. If your child says, I hate my school. And you say, yeah, school can be difficult. I know you sometimes don't feel very good about school. You're not passing judgment about whether, why do you hate your school? Your school is so nice, or minimizing it. And so school's not so bad. Those are the kind of things that we don't want to do in validation, right? We want to stay open. We want to understand their experience. We want to stay curious to understand what it is that's going on. So if your child is saying, I hate school, what's happening? Tell me more about that, right? And lastly, when you're listening fully and attentively, your child knows that, right? When you're off your phone, when you're not engaged in multitasking at the same time, they can feel it. They know that you're engaging. And sometimes we're not able to be fully engaged. Maybe you have another child, maybe you have a baby crying at the same time and you need to take care of that baby, or there's something happening that really does take you away. That's okay, right? If we have a child who needs our attention and needs to talk to us about something, we can say to our, to our child, why don't you hold that for a moment? I'm just going to finish doing what I'm doing and I'm going to get back to you because I really want to be present when I'm having this conversation with you. Um, so just think of it in a way that when your child is coming to you and they're coming to you with a problem, an experience, an issue, the first thing you want to do is empathize and validate their feelings. Next slide, Tina. So what validation looks like, we'll get into a bit more examples now because I think it's easier to understand. So acknowledging their feelings can be like, I can see that this is really making you upset. Sounds like this is very annoying. Looks like you're feeling really mad about it, right? Imagine your child is coming to you and says to you, let's look at something, my friend didn't want to play with me today, right? And you jump in to fix it. You jump in to make a comment about it. Well, why didn't you do this? Or why didn't he want to play with you? Or what did you do that they don't want to play with you? That already shuts down the conversation, right? Rather, when you approach it in a more acknowledging way and you say to your child, well, that's kind of hard. Yeah, your friend didn't want to play with you. I can understand that making you upset. Next bullet, Tina. And then you show that you understand, right? It's either nonverbal clues that allow you to, thank you, Jenna. It's so hard to, so we have the nonverbal clues, the eye contact, the head nodding, you're there. And you can add a little bit to it, right? Because now you've validated, you want to add something. So yeah, it must have been very upsetting when your friend didn't want to play with you because you really like him and you're really nice to this friend and he should have played with you. So you're adding a little component of understanding there, right? And the examples that I'm giving here is I can imagine why this is so hard for you. It's very complex. I know this math problem is hard. Or it makes sense that you feel rejected because you've been a good friend to her, right? So that additional information really conveys that you are understanding what your child is saying. And that already opens up the conversation for your child to be able to want to speak to you, to engage with you, and to be more open with you, right? We're less reactive this way. Next slide, Tina. Another point of validation is often to show that we care. Now, we want to show we care, but usually we do that by jumping in to fix things. As I mentioned before, that's usually our go-to way of doing. A child is upset, there's a problem, and our sort of reaction is, how can I solve this problem? Because if I solve this problem, my child is going to feel better, and then everything will be fine, right? So that is one way to do it. But remember what I said before regarding stepping out of your comfort zone, right? If we jump into fix things, if we always go to the notion of helping our child, you know, avoid these feelings and these distressing, experiences, we're not allowing them to grow and learn and deal with things and rely on themselves, right? So we do want to show that we care. We want to show that we're there and we're offering support, but we don't necessarily want to jump in to fix things. So this will look like something like this. You really want to go, but didn't get an invitation. That's upsetting. But I'm here for you. Let me know how I can help you get through it. Right? In this situation, there is no solution. This is not like a math problem where you can help them figure out the math problem. There was no invitation. Your child is going to be very disappointed and upset that they cannot go to whatever event that was. And you're not going to be able to fix that. right? Yeah, there are some parents who may call the other parent and, demand an invitation, but I'm not sure that would be the right thing to do, right? But you want to be there to help your child get through that because your child is upset and is hurting, right? Bullet, ex-bullet. So yeah, we kind of said that, not jumping in to fix things. And we don't want to give a lot of praise either, right? Sometimes we overpraise to try and make our child feel, you've been a good friend. Yes, you did the right thing. Or we can give some praise. Some praise is okay. Thank you for sharing with me the information. Thank you for being open with me and telling me this. I'm really happy that you did that. So very short praise is good, but we don't overdo it. We just want to connect and show that we are engaged in what is happening to you. And yes, this is not easy to do, and it requires a lot of practice. Most times when I work with parents on this sort of thing, and we sort of do it, we actually ask parents to try and practice not with their kids, right? Because initially validating someone can take a while to hone in on it. So I would ask you maybe, before you start trying to do that with your kids, try it with your spouses, with your friends, some coworkers, and pay attention to how you do it. And sort of you will see that it does, with a bit of practice, becomes easier. Next.
All right. So, in summary, what Zamira was talking about was really communication with curiosity. There were a lot of points there. And so, for that reason, we have organized this sort of very quick three-step process in which you can take all of the valuable information that Zamira shared and have it at hand. We will be handing out at the end of the presentation, or when we when we share the presentation, you will get a full page information sheet about this so that it acts as a reminder, a handy reminder whenever you need it. So number one, as Amira said, step one is to be present and curious. So in this stage, you want to use a collaborative approach that shows your presence and your curiosity towards their feelings rather than shame or blame for their behavior. So really sitting down and trying to go over the problem with them and by asking questions. You want to hold eye contact, put your phone down or other distractions away, and be fully present and patient in this moment. This demonstrates that we see our children and we hear what they're trying to say to us as we try to understand their behavior. So, an example might be an I noticed statement, such as, Hey, I noticed that it's taking you a while to get started. Can you tell me why? Can you tell me what's going on? What's happening behind that? Maybe they're not starting their chores. Maybe they're not starting their homework, whatever it might be, but you're approaching the situation with noticing them and asking with curiosity. Step two would be to be reflective. So here we want to validate and reflect on our child's responses. We want to take the time to sit with them and their emotions and really hold space during this moment. We want to be able to reflect on their mental state and acknowledge the feelings that they're experiencing. So that might sound something like if the child says, well, I don't like math, so I'm not doing it. We want to sort of repeat back what they have said in a way that validates how they're actually feeling about math. So, yes, math can be confusing and make us feel frustrated, and I get that sometimes. After you're holding space in this moment and reflecting back how they're feeling about the problem that they're encountering, we want to be attuned. So at this moment, we would want to ask for their perspective and create a sense of safety to reduce defensiveness. We want to have the child lead the problem solving within acceptable boundaries, of course. So, as Zamira said, this doesn't involve praise or fixing things because we want to make it our priority to protect their autonomy. So, we're simply at this stage offering help if needed. So after, in the third step, we would throw it back at them and say, so what are you going to do about this? What can you do to fix this problem? And I just want you to know that I'm here for you if you do need help. So we're encouraging the problem solving on their own, but we're also extending our help if it's needed. Okay, so uh, we'd like to know now, take a moment to reflect on what you think of the information we just shared with you. We'd like you to reflect on maybe some past or recent experiences with your children where there was a little bit of conflict, and how has what you just learned changed how you would respond to your child? So please comment in the chat. We'll take a few minutes now.
Yeah, so we have Jana, you said before, it's so hard not to try and fix things. That is so true. And another person said the pause seems so important here. Not sure quite what that means. Maybe the pause not to jump into stuff, to just wait. Yes, we
Mhm.
tend to jump into fixing it without finishing listening. Trying not to
Feel-
fix things really resonates, I guess, with a lot of people. Be patient, listen. Yep. Thank you. Thank you for sharing. Anyone else wants to weigh in, maybe have a comment? What resonated with you most from what you just heard? Being attuned is hard if they don't want to do the homework and don't ask for help. Yeah, that is absolutely correct. Yeah. To find out what their statement really means in behind what they mean. Yes.
Mhm.
Yeah, and I want to make a comment about that because getting our kids to communicate with us is hard. But once we start with validation and we sort of dispel a bit of the anger, we open it up to having a conversation, and then we can have more information. What's behind what's going on? What is, what is really happening, or just getting information that is out there that they're often refusing to tell us. Remember, kids won't want to talk to us if we are always going to be, judgmental, or we're going to get mad very quickly, or we're not going to be attuned to them. So the information will come out more when you do these sort of techniques. It's difficult to validate their feelings. They appear sulky and pouty. It takes us being calm. That is so important. Thank you, Gail, for that, because it requires us to be able to control our own urge to respond and to react and to be emotional. But as you know, our role modeling is so important to our kids, right? We have to be the role models, and we are human beings and we are going to react, and that's okay. Sometimes we can't do these things. And this does not mean that every conversation and every interaction you have with your kid, you're going to validate and do these steps to the T. This is not what we mean that sometimes when you do this, you will get more connection. And if you do this a little bit more than you do it now, you will already get more connection, right? Um, so yeah, it's just about doing the best that you can, right? Um, I see, I'm going to comment on one more. It's especially hard when the problem is recurrent and we've tried pretty much everything. And that is
Mhm.
so common as well. Do you want to comment on that, Tina?
Yes, this is why taking that curious approach is so valuable because when you start off with an "I noticed you" statement, that means that you really see the child and what they're going through in that moment. So I noticed that you didn't get started yet, if I use that same example. So I'm noticing them and not just making the statement like it's 6 o'clock and you haven't started your homework yet. You need to get going on it. Right away, that imposes judgment instead of, hey, I noticed that you haven't gotten started yet. Can you tell me more about that? So right away, this opens the doors for communication. It expresses that we're seeing them and we're noticing that something it might not be okay. And I also just because I cannot see right now the questions in the chat, so I'm going by what you were reading, Zamira.
Hmm.
And somebody mentioned holding space or the pause. And the reason for that is because the child is often trying to process their emotions. And so they're not maybe able to offer an immediate answer. And if they offer an immediate answer, it's always, or often, I should say, very emotionally charged. And so you don't really get the truth in the first answer, you just get a defensive reaction. And so when you're holding space, like in the example, I hate math, more of like a defensive emotional, I hate math, I don't want to do it. But then you validate it by saying, I get that. And math can be frustrating. You can see their body language. They're feeling frustrated. They're feeling shut down. And that's why it's so important to hold space here. You're labeling the feelings. And normally, or usually, often when we do that, the child then starts to volunteer even more information about their feelings. It could be, I asked a question in the classroom and I didn't understand the answer. Um, or maybe I didn't pay attention. I was thinking about something else and then I missed it. I was too embarrassed to ask a question. It could be any number of reasons, but you're starting to get a bigger picture from their perspective, in terms of why they haven't started their work yet. And then again, with the final step, offering that period where we say, okay, well, what can you do in this moment? And this would be very helpful because it builds the autonomy in terms of helping them to say, okay, well, now that I've heard my own voice, thinking, reflecting back on this problem that I'm having, maybe there are more solutions and I have more power than I think to overcome whatever this challenge might be.
Thank you, Tina. Okay, thank you for all your comments. So we will move on. So the next part. So now that we've connected and we know how to connect and validate our kids so well, right? We're going to move on to increasing their motivation. So having that connection is important. Having that ability to engage with them is important. But we do know that that's not enough. Our kids do need to be motivated. So this little diagram here is really illustrate what good performance is. So in order to do something well, and we're not talking about just math, we need both motivation and the ability to do it. So the example I'm going to give now is, again, math. It's an easy one to do. So if your child is doing a very complex math, and they have no idea how to do it, that meaning the ability is just not there. They haven't learned it. They haven't mastered it yet. It doesn't matter how motivated they are to do it and how much they want to get it done. They just can't do it. So the performance is not going to be very good. Vice versa, they may be able to do it really well. They've done it before. They've mastered this problem really well, but they just don't feel like doing it. They're just not motivated. They have other things going on. They're waiting to go somewhere else, or they're not in the mood. And yeah, and they just don't want to do it. So it doesn't matter how much ability they have and how well they're able to do the task, the performance is still not going to be there. So in that sense, we need to keep in mind that in order to have good performance, you need both the ability, the skill to do the thing we're asking them to do, but also the motivation to do it. And therefore, we need to increase them both. Sometimes we need to increase them both. Sometimes we only have to increase one. Um, and I'm going to talk, the rest of today will be really honing in on how to increase the motivation. And the ability, we will talk more about that in our next webinar. Tina.
Okay. Right. So when we're talking specifically about ability, and again, like Samira said, we'll be talking more about this particular topic in the next webinar on February 11th. But when we're talking about increasing ability, we're talking about developing executive function skills. So these are your brain-based skills for knowing how to set a goal and achieve that goal and all the steps that are required to follow in between. It requires specific building of each of all of the different executive skills so that kids can really hone in and practice these skills. So this is what we're talking about when we're saying increasing ability. It requires available resources and conditions. It is certainly something that you learn by doing, but it is also guided by somebody who knows how to do the task and can offer some support, like the classroom teacher or like yourself in your home. It involves academics and explicit teaching, as well as some accommodations or some scaffolding for learning how to execute these skills and practice these skills. So, motivation and engagement. We're often wondering why kids don't just do what they know they should do. How many times have I myself said this as a parent? And when we're looking at ability, we have to remind ourselves that motivation or lack of motivation does not always equate to laziness. It's not always the reason why. So sometimes they're not doing something, not just because they don't feel like it, but because they may not have the skills to know how to do it, and so they get overwhelmed. And so the first reaction that we see is often an emotional reaction. And so what happens is kids shut down when they're in face of a challenge. And it really is a physiological response that can overwhelm the nervous system and lead to difficulty with regulating their emotions. And this kind of explains why they go from 0 to 10 so quickly when they get frustrated or discouraged.
Thank you, Tina.
And yes, sorry. Oh, I
Oh,
thought you
sorry.
called.
Yeah. Yeah. I just said thank you for explaining
Oh,
that. Yeah.
okay. Oh, sorry. I didn't hear. I just heard Tina. Okay, and then we have the executive function skills, which are the performance skills that are responsible for setting goals, planning a course of action to achieve the goal that has been set, while simultaneously reflecting on your progress and adjusting your course if necessary. So if you've set a goal, you've planned and prioritized and organized what you need to do to get that goal done. And then you might encounter a challenge which requires some problem solving skills, some flexible thinking in order to help you get around and overcome that challenge. And then at the end, we're reflecting back and saying, okay, how well did I do? And what do I need to do next time in order to achieve the goal that I've set for myself? So these skills really need to be scaffolded. And this is what we're talking about when we see kids seem like they are not motivated or they are disengaged in things that we know that they just need to get done. So we can ask ourselves, is it a question of ability? Now, ability is not always the case.
Yes.
So,
So we're going to we'll focus. Thank you, Tina. Today we're
you're
going to
welcome.
focus on when ability is there, right? Remember, let's go back. Can we go back to my to the little diagram?
Yes,
And
this one?
nope, next before. Yeah. So today we're going to focus on like we said, we need for good performance, we need both motivation and ability. And ability is important. There's a lot of things like executive function and other things that kids need to learn. But we're going to assume that the ability is there today. We're going to talk about those things that we know our kids can do, right? And hone in on what is the motivation and how to increase that motivation when we know they can do something. And and just a little bit about what we mean by motivation. So Motivation is both an internal and an external driving force that makes us or compels us to take action, right? To take initiative. It's to pursue a goal. It's to persist. And we know that kids will have a lot of motivation when things are easy and fun and very rewarding and they like it, but not very motivated when the task creates frustration, when it creates discomfort, when there's too much challenge, when those unpleasant emotions arise in them when they have to do what they need to do. So now we can go back to the following slide. Thank you,
Okay.
Tina.
Yes.
Yes, so if we're going to look at that premise that the things that don't motivate kids when they can do something, they can do it, but they're not motivated because it creates discomfort, then we really need to make them feel less comfortable about not doing the things that they're supposed to be doing, right? So I'm going to try to explain that because it's not an easy concept to understand. We often think about let's take a task that we know our kids can do. Okay. If we say take out the trash, we know that our child is capable of getting up off their bed and going downstairs and taking out the trash. We're not talking here about a math complex ability or something that we're not sure they're capable of doing. Unless they have a physical disability, obviously, we're not talking about that. And they don't want to do it. They're not motivated to do it. They're in the middle of a game. It's cold outside. They just don't feel like doing it. It's creating some uncomfortable feeling in them to do that. So we feel like we need to make them feel comfortable about doing it. Maybe sort of change it in a sort of way, but that's not how we increase motivation. Motivation is increased by learning that even despite the discomfort that you're feeling, despite the difficulties and the challenges that you're experiencing, you are still able to do the thing that you are doing, and you still are able to persist and pursue the goal. But we have to start with letting them experience that, experience some discomfort and still get it done. Okay. And we do that usually by natural consequences or incentives. We start small and we do it in a very empathetic way, right? We don't want to, if we want to get them on board, we need to do it in a very empathetic way. And this is really important to really keep that in mind because the other option that we have when kids are not doing what they're doing is nagging them, it's threatening them, it's persuading them. And by continuing nagging and persuading and threatening our child to do things, we're in effect telling them, you are not, that you as a parent, you're not able to do much about this. You're helpless to change the situation. And maybe you don't even believe that they can do it, right? Maybe you don't think that they're actually able to do what they feel helpless because all you can do is nag and nag and nag. Yes, I'm going to explain more about these different things. I just wanted to hone in on why this is so important to understand. So let's go to the next slide, Tina.
Mm-hmm.
So how do we start? So actually, before that, go take away number one. Just
Okay.
yeah. Why do I say start gradually? Start because if we have not done this before and we're going to introduce something new to our kids, we're not going to say, okay, from now on, this is what I'm going to do, and that's how it is, and figure it out, sink or swim. We're not ever going to be able to do that, right? So starting gradually meaning finding something that we can have our child do and stick to it so that our child knows that, we can follow through. Because if we don't follow through, it's not going to work. So when we talk about starting gradually, we want to pick something that's very doable. So now you can go to number one. Yeah. And my example would be in this case, let's say you want to have your child leave your room. This is one of the questions, many of the questions that we had were very helpful in guiding us here. But this was a common one. My child is in their room on their phone, never want to leave the room, never want to talk to us, never want to come and see us, right? So let's say the expectation is that you want your child to leave their room just to come and have supper with you. That's once a day for 20 minutes. Have supper and have that really engaging conversation with a lot of validation, right? And they're capable of doing that, right? We're not talking about things that they need to learn the skill. They're capable of doing that. And maybe you want them to do so without their phone, right? But you're not, and actually even have a conversation with you. But that's not going to happen all at once. So maybe you start very, very small. The expectation is come to the table. You can bring your phone, keep it in your pocket, but at least come. Let's start with one thing at a time. That's the expectation. Number two, Tina, make sure that they can do it. Well, we've established that your child is capable of leaving their room and coming to the dining table, so they can do it. Number three, establish what the incentive is. So incentive or the natural consequence would be something that goes together with what the expectation is. So in this case, I would probably suggest, if this is a young teen, I would probably suggest that if they do come to the table and they do what you ask them to do, then maybe they get extra time gaming, or maybe you give them an allowance of $5 every week, and they will not lose that, right? Um, it depends. That would be could be a natural consequence. You will not get your allowance this week if you do not come to the table. Or maybe they want to ride this afternoon or this evening to a friend, and you can say, well, you come to the table and have dinner with us, you'll get your ride. Otherwise, you can take the bus or you can't go. So we have to be prepared, and we have to really think carefully how we're going to do this, and we have to stick to it. So if you make an expectation and you decide what the incentive is, then you have to make sure it's doable. And if you don't think it's doable and you don't follow through, then choose something that's doable. Number four. So you have to inform your child clearly, kindly, and lovingly, because we're not going to make a change and have them read our minds that this is what we're going to suddenly do, right? So the way I recommend to sit down with your child around something like this and listen, we really notice that you're always in your room. And often we don't see you all afternoon, and we really want to have dinner with you. We love you very much. We want to see you. So from now on, we've decided, for the good of the family and for your sake, that we will expect you to come down and have dinner with us every evening. And we're really looking forward to it. So it's in a very positive way you're doing this, right? And this is how we're going to do it. If you come to the table and you follow through and sit with us, we're not expecting too much other than that. You will then, be able to earn extra gaming time later, or we will, take you for the ride that you wanted, or give you the ride you wanted. Or if there isn't anything, it could be even taking away something like, well, you're losing your allowance for today, that sort of thing. And it's not a punishment, because immediately we think it's a punishment, but it isn't, because they have the power to earn that $5 allowance. They have the power to earn that extra gaming time and that lift that you want to give them. It's all in their control. They just have to come to the table to do so. And you're asking them to do something doable, right? As Tina said before, if they don't have the ability, we cannot ask them to do something, right? So that's how we inform our child the situation. And then number five, Tina, we follow through. And as I said, it has to be doable for you to follow through as parents. If you think that what you will do will create a terrible tantrum or some difficult situation that you do not think that you will be able to handle, start smaller. Start with something that you can handle, and then make your way up to things that are more demanding. But you have to also be,
Right.
that's fine. You can
Okay.
bring that. You have to be prepared that your child might not be happy, that they might come to the table sulking and say, oh, I'm just coming to the table because I don't want to lose my $5 allowance, or I just want to do it because I need that ride from you. And they'll sit there and they'll make a point of not speaking to you and showing you how awful it is that you've even asked them to sit there with you. And that's okay. You will deal with that. You will live with that for that evening, and you will maybe even do a good validating statement such as, "Yeah, we know you don't like coming to sit here. You want to be in your room and be with your phone and you keep chatting with your friend. We get that, but we're really happy that you're here." And you can even praise them for saying, "You came. You didn't want to come. It was not something you wanted to do. It didn't feel good for you, but you did it. So we're really happy and we're pleased to have you here." Um, yeah, and then you try it again. And it's about kind of going up in little increments. So after they get more used to this and they see that you mean business and you follow through, they're not going to come to the table sulking every day. And then you can even say, "You know what, maybe now you can leave your phone in your room during these 20 minutes, half an hour at the table. Nothing will happen." And again, an incentive to make it less comfortable for them not to do what you're asking, right? They're not happy about coming. You're not giving them something, bribing them to make it a really cool thing to come to the table, but you're making it less comfortable for them to stay in their rooms and deny that request from you, right? I hope that makes sense. And the last thing that I want to mention is be a role model. So if we're working on putting phone down, you have to be the role model, right? If you're working on not having phones at the table, there's no way that we can demand that from our kids and have our phones right next to us, right? And even make it even more visible and say, "You see, I'm putting my phone away. And if your phone rings, you look at it, and unless it's an emergency, I'm not picking it up. This is something that I'm really going to show my child that I can handle as well," right? Being a role model is kids learn from us. And we cannot demand them to do something that we're not capable of doing. And that goes back to that also statement that somebody said in the chat, we feel the emotion and we want to get mad and upset. So if we control our emotions and we show them that we're able to do that, it might be the way we role model a little bit how to do so. So these different steps can be applied to anything that you do, whether it's asking your child to help you out in a chore. So maybe your child does nothing. They don't help you with anything. And you want to start teaching them to help, right? So you won't start with something complicated, like maybe taking the laundry and doing, a whole load of laundry and sorting them out. They're not really prepared for that yet, but maybe clearing off the table after dinner or helping, sort of to clean something up around the house that you know that they're capable of doing. And slowly develop that skill. And when it becomes part of how how you do things, it becomes more easily, right? So we're going to stop at that because we want to have a little bit of time for questions. Um, I'm going to look at the chat and we'll see. There were some comments. So I'm first going to look at the comments. Maybe you can help me, both Danielle and mhm. So yeah, somebody said, "Can you explain what it means by natural consequences and incentives?" So I gave a little bit of examples. What are natural consequences and incentives? A natural consequence is something that happens right after. So if I'm asking you to take out the trash and right after you're intending to go, on your PlayStation, well, the PlayStation is there waiting for you. There's no punishment. We're not taking it away from you. We're not denying you, but the trash has to be taken out before you can have access to it. That's a natural consequence. Rather than say, "You didn't take the trash out, I'm going to take away now the PlayStation. You're not having it for a month," which sometimes we do stuff like that. That doesn't resonate very well, and it's not very helpful. The incentive is a good question. Would the incentive teach them? This is not a reward. We're not saying, "You come to the table and I will give you something for it." You have to choose something that is already there, right? And that they have control in accessing it. you usually give them a ride, maybe to go to the basketball practice, or you do give them an allowance every week, or they do get half an hour to play PlayStation after dinner. Um, that could be that's there already, and they have access to it anyway, but now they have to earn it. Another possibility, and if you're prepared to do that as an incentive or natural consequence, is especially with teens, is if they don't come to the table to eat with you, with that particular example, you can say, well, the incentive is that you get to the table and you have a plate of food ready for you, home cooked meal, already warmed up and ready to eat, right? If you don't, then you're going to have to prepare your own food, and it might be in the fridge or packed away, and you have to deal with it yourself. We're not going to deny you eating, but you need to prepare it yourself. And a teen can certainly do that. The problem with that sort of thing is often teens would say, well, I won't eat, or they'll just grab a snack and then, sometimes they prefer to do that and continue gaming and being on their phone. So that may not work very well as a natural consequence. Any other questions? How is incentive part of the equation helping our kids become more comfortable with discomfort? So the incentive is really about, again, it's about something that they need to be in control. So if you're in your room and the incentive is that you will not get your ride afterwards, you're making it less comfortable for them to stay in their room, right, than not stay in the room, because they have to weigh in. I don't really want to go to the table. I hate, I want to be here in my room. I'm not comfortable with that. But it's even more uncomfortable for me to have to take the bus in the winter. Um, so what's more uncomfortable, staying in my room or taking the bus? So I will come to the table. And that's what I mean by less comfortable. I hope that clarifies it.
The next comment looks interesting. It says, "It sounds like motivation is not really their internal want to do. It is more that they want something else more." And yes,
Absolutely.
that
Yeah,
does happen for us all, children and and adults, depending on what the task is. But as adults,
absolutely.
we've learned at some point that sometimes we have to do what we don't want to do. And so we naturally might insert, a reward for ourselves. For example, if I uh, if I do something that's a little bit challenging at work, I put myself out there and do some kind of team building task. And we reward ourselves perhaps with going out for dinner after the event to celebrate. So
Mhm.
that's a little bit of an external motivator that helps us to do something that we don't really want to do.
Yes.
With your example, Zamira, about eating
Mhm.
dinner at the table, kids do, teens especially, just kind of like to sort of stay in their room, and it's as if it's their own little castle and they could do whatever they want. When I call my children down for supper, and if they don't eat supper with us, then as soon as supper is finished, the supper is packed away, and then they'll often come downstairs and say, it's all put back into the fridge. And they'll often say, well, where's my plate of food? And I'll say, well, it's all been packed away. The dishes are done. So you'll have to make yourself a plate. You'll need to clean all of the dishes that you've dirtied as a result of making yourself a plate, and put it all back in the fridge. And please make sure the fridge is organized.
Mhm.
So that is definitely takes a lot more time than coming down and enjoying a meal
Yeah.
with the
Yeah.
family.
And these strategies are not easy to do. They're not easy to implement. This is why I really tell parents to start small and to really kind of take it step by step, because there's backlash sometimes, and you have to be prepared, because even even though there's incentive, your child is still doing something that's discomforting for them, and they don't want
Mhm.
to do it. And that's how this is so important for them to experience that they can do things that they don't want to do. And they have
Mhm.
the choice to do that. and they choose to do it. And that's how we build that resilience. That's how we build that frustration tolerance, right? Um, and we really need to be able to be willing to go through these kind of experiences before we come to the other side, in which your child now understands that, yeah, you mean business. This is how it is. You're not going to
Mhm.
jump to do things for them. You're not going to give in to them in everything that they ask, and you are going to have expectation that you're going to stick to. Um, it's just a matter of sort of trying to apply it as much and as best as you can in the best way that you can. My kid can take 10 minutes to argue. Why doesn't he want to do it? Why does he want to do it? He makes a big drama and both we finish mad at each other. Um, well, the by by doing this kind of strategy, you might avoid that. So think about something that he doesn't want to do, and don't forget that step number
Two, I
four.
think it was.
Yeah,
Okay.
think about step number four, how you inform your child clearly, kindly, and lovingly why you're doing this. And that really kind of changes the way, the way we approach it. Another thing that I tell parents is think about anything that you've ever taught your child to do. Like think of things that we all do, like teaching our kids to get dressed when they're really, really young, when they're just learning, 2, 3 years old, and we're teaching them to put their clothes on slowly. They're pulling things on, they're learning how to put their hands in their sleeves. We take time. We don't ask a 2 year old to dress himself from top to bottom. We hold maybe the sleeve and they push their hands in. And then by the time they're 3, well, they can pull their pants on and we wait and we have, if we kept doing it for them and allowing them never to feel the frustration of doing it on their own, they will never learn. And we all know that gradual learning that comes with learning how to feed themselves and dress themselves. And that's a kind of thinking that I'd like you to think when you're trying to teach to have them comply with these sort of new tasks that you're not used to having them comply with.
Mhm. And I
And
think that
there's,
I would,
mhm,
if I may step in, Samir, when they
sure.
say that their child can take 10 minutes to argue why he doesn't want to do something that he wants to do, I think that if we go back to the three steps that we were looking at before, I feel that that might fall under step two, right, where they're not feeling heard, and so they're still trying to argue their point, and that just gets louder and it gets more fed with emotions when they don't feel like they're being heard. And this is why when we're applying that step two, where we're reflecting back to them, saying, I heard what you said and I can see what you feel, and allowing space at that time, that sort of disarms the argument because now you're really listening. We kind of get caught in a back and forth, where they pull us into the chaos, and now we're arguing our points with them. And I would say that that's the difference between uh, really helping our child to feel seen and heard, giving them that space, listening with full attention, with curiosity, that you're trying to understand their point of view, their perspective, and their feelings, so that you can say it back to them in order to get them to a state where they're ready to problem solve. Do you want to add to that, to Zamira?
No, I say yes. I mean, you've said it all. It's just that this does not mean and that we don't have the expectation, right? Maybe we need to hold back and come back to that expectation, what you're asking your child to do. And you're not going to get the buy-in. And you need to maybe do that legwork before. But also, if you do this more often, you won't have to do it. It won't be as sort of as important to be spending too much time doing it. At the beginning, you do want to do that to create that connection. But when that connection is established and your child knows that you are there for them and you tend to respond in this way, and that also you mean what you say about the expectation, things then run more smoothly. All right. I'm going to look at at the questions, yes, there's somebody. Maybe this one we didn't answer.
EH, what do you recommend when making changes of habits and schedule? Example, reading time and learning music instead of TV time.
Right. So you want to increase the time that your child spends reading or practicing a musical instrument. Is that correct? Am I correct? So let's say it's again, it's the expectation. So if your child, let's say, is now reading maybe 15 minutes, right? That's the time that is currently established, and you do have the cooperation of your child for 15 minutes, and now you want to increase it for maybe 20 or 25 minutes. You would go through these steps that I told you. You would decide about the expectation, right? From now on, we would like you to read an extra 10 minutes every night. We're really happy that you're reading for 15, but we would like you to read for 25. We would then also establish what the incentive is. So if you read for 25 minutes and then maybe on the weekend you often we do a certain thing on the weekend that you maybe sort of can earn more time for, or you can, be able to access something that you don't usually access. You have to decide what works with you, with your family, with your child's interests. What will be something that your child is doing, is there? You're not adding something, but that thing is under his control, right? So on the weekend, or it could be right after the reading time, whatever it is, you figure out what that is and you present that to your child as the incentive. And you start it out, right? You follow through with it and see how that works. Um, and the same with musical, if you're playing music, if you want to increase the time. Um, it really is not very, very complicated. And sometimes if you just add another 5 minutes, you don't even have to have too much incentive, right? If you start really, really small and you gradually increase it, you will find that your children buy into things more, and they can handle that discomfort of, oh, I have to read another 5, 10 minutes. Okay, it's just five. They can handle that discomfort on their own, as opposed to asking them now read an extra half an hour, right? That won't fly very well with a child. So figure out with your child, you know your child best, you know what they are capable of doing. You want to have them a little bit uncomfortable, right? You don't want them to feel that this is so easy and I can do it. You want them to experience that discomfort, but you don't want to experience too much discomfort so that they're going to say, I'm not going to do this at all. I hope that answers the question.
And then we have, do I need to apologize for not validating their emotions a while ago? So, an event that happened in the past, should I go back and apologize for not having validated their emotions during that argument or during that discussion?
Absolutely. If it was an important argument, if it was something important that really left an impact on you and your child, you can say, I went to a webinar and I learned this, and this is what I learned. And I want to tell you that I would like to now, be a little bit more conscientious about doing this. And would like to validate how you are feeling, even though maybe I don't agree with what you did or your choice of reaction. I still understand and validate how you feel. Yeah, absolutely. We can do that. That's the best role modeling, actually, that you can do.
Yes, I was going to say it's great for modeling. You're showing them, you're modeling the behavior yourselves, and you're showing them that you also can make mistakes.
Yeah. And we have a
I think it's
question here from
excellent.
Sophie. We would like to know if you also offer presentation information for parents with kids with mental illness, like moderate or severe anxiety or depression, eating disorder. So we did have a series of webinars last year on anxiety. I would highly recommend that if you haven't watched it, you can. Danielle, they're accessible through Learn Quebec, through the YouTube channel of Learn Quebec. Am I correct? Yeah. So you can access those. I think it was a three-part series because we really honed in on some strategies for anxious children. Yeah, that's what we do. We can offer you that for now. This year, we're not doing anything else apart from this particular webinar. We will say good night to everyone, and we will see you in 2 weeks. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you, everyone.